Hello, hello. This is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about the final night of the RNC convention. Trump finally got up and addressed the nation and talked about his near-death experience, which he said that was the only time he planned to really talk about it because he said it was too painful. I mean, we could take him for his word for it, but it just seems like kind of hard to imagine him not really, talking about it again. But he talked Hulk Hogan, ripped his shirt off. So there's some pretty wild things that happened last night. On the flip side, the Dems are all knives out for Biden. So Biden and his family, though, they aren't going down swinging. So I mean, they are going down swinging. They're not going quietly into the night, not going gently into the night. And frankly, they have no reason if they do not want to. If he doesn't want to leave, what can they do to him? What can they do? So anyway, we'll be talking about the great politics of the day. But before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate because it does cost a stream, run my website, all that good stuff so you guys can support. I appreciate you guys can also check out different merch that's available at the website, like different shirts and stuff like this Make Crack Whack Again Trump 24 shirt. We got the black tea mugs and other stuff you guys can see at the website. Also, I do have books like of course God is blatantly against abortion that's available on Amazon. Also, I do have a bunch of nonfiction. I'm sorry, a bunch of fiction books that you guys can check out. Sorry, there's like a hair that like rolled on my arm and it felt uncomfortable. So two books that I have are my Super Kid books. If you have some middle grade, these are middle grade chapter books, usually kids from, I don't know, anywhere from like 8 to 12 kind of pick these up and read them. But it's about a kid with an overactive imagination. He thinks he has superpowers. He doesn't really. So it's got some great conservative values in there, and really about the power of imagination and finding what truly makes you special is your self-confidence and deciding to do the right thing for right's sake. Actually, that's why my dad always said he liked us reading comic books, because that's what the characters, these people were doing things, we were doing right for right's sake. And they wanted to instill some of those values in us. And it's funny now because I really don't like the comic book industry, not the whole comic book industry, but like the main Marvel and DC and the routes that they've been going, particularly Marvel. But anyway, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole today, but just, there's some content if you guys want to check out other stuff that I have. I do have something funny to show you guys. I like to start with something funny normally. So let me prepare that. But as I'm preparing to show you that, last night, I was up on TikTok really late last night, and I came across a live, and the live was about Amber Rose speaking at the RNC, and there's people are still talking about it, and because people are still upset about it and still upset about comments that like Matt Walsh made about it, saying like, no, we should not have had like an OnlyFans model at the RNC convention, which I'm sure a lot of people were unaware that. I was unaware of that when she did it. I just knew about, the past of the slut walk and other comments she had made that were disparaging toward Christians and, her support of Satanists and being so pro-abortion and things like that. So I wasn't fond of her. I guess I really much only know her for pretty degenerate, negative stuff. I just didn't think that she was it was appropriate for her to be at the RNC. And people say, "Oh, she did a good speech." A lot of people could have did that same speech, like, "Oh, she has a good reach." Her reach is still there on her Instagram when she's posted MAGA stuff. It wasn't, more people will probably see her stuff who are her fans when she just posts stuff online versus like people watching her on C-SPAN. So I didn't think that was necessary, but people were like mad at Matt Walsh and I guess folks like me who say we're Puritans and we need to seethe and cope. I don't think it's productive to insult such a large base of the party, but whatever. What, whatever. So anyway, on this live, there's a woman saying that she, was glad that she did it. She had like a picture of Amber Rose as like the main picture, and she was talking about how she's proud of her and the changes that she had made. And I didn't know what she was talking about as far as the changes she had made. So I jumped in the live, and so I asked her like, "Well, what kind of changes are you talking about?" And then she's like, "Well, because she, I guess she used to do this walk thing." And I don't know if she's associated with that or not anymore, but I've heard people say that she, um, kind of wasn't into that stuff anymore. I haven't heard her seen a clip or read about her saying anything denouncing the stuff that she used to do as far as her involvement in that. But I mentioned, I said, okay, well, did you know that she sells, images of herself or videos of herself or whatever on OnlyFans? So she's, kind of like a porn star. And so she's like, well, I don't know anything about that. I don't know that. I'm talking about her changes politically. I was like, okay, but I mean, what kind of changes do you mean politically? Because there's a video from her from March talking about how she supports Satanists for helping women have abortions in places where it's illegal. And so she's like, well, I'm just talking about what she said in her speech. I'm like, okay, well, what she said in her speech was that she supports, Donald Trump, and that she did a research and that he's not racist. But I mean, that doesn't mean that she's changed her politics. It just means that she's, you know, she said that people are doing better under Trump than Biden. But on her Instagram, I think it was her Instagram when she wrote a post about why she's supporting Trump. I'm like, one of the reasons why she mentioned was that, that he's moderate on abortion. So she's supporting him because of, that you can, kill your babies. And so she's like, she said that, Trump is for states' rights. And so I start talking about how equal protection should apply to everybody. So we went back and forth on abortion a little bit. She's like, I don't want to talk about this subject. I don't want to talk about the subject. I don't want to talk about the subject. I was like, okay, I just brought it up because that's a, main reason why Amber Rose supports him. And so she's like, I'm trying really hard not to talk about that. She's like, I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to be nice. I don't want to talk about this subject. I'm like, I'm just trying to understand when you say Amber Rose change, like, what do you mean by that? And she's like, I already explained it. I'm like, if you said something earlier, I missed it because I just came in not too long ago, but I don't know what you're talking about as far what kind of change that she made. And she ended up dropping me and just kicked me off the feed. But that really spoke to me that folks are just happy that she said, I did my research and learned that he's not racist. And I understand why people like that message and they want other people to research and learn that he is not actually racist. And that's great if people do that. That's great that she did that she listened to her dad, that her dad challenged her. But there's so many people that have those kinds of stories. And Amber Rose actually doesn't even have that much influence in the Black community anyway, like the Black kind of pop culture sphere. So I if people just want to say I'm happy she's there because she supports my guy, that's fine. I don't understand people like twisting themselves in knots about it and making these kind of grand mythos about her and her big change. I'm not aware of her believing she's a Republican and she's definitely not a conservative. You don't have the sorts of views that she has and claim to be conservative. Like they don't compute, they don't mesh. And people mentioning different grievances about Amber Rose being there. And folks are like, "Oh, you just don't want anybody to be conservative, and what about people, allowing people to change, and you Christians, what about forgiveness and repentance?" I'm like, I love forgiveness and repentance. I But she hasn't done those things. Like, what are you talking about? From my understanding, she is still someone who's she's open to Trump because of her abortion stances and stuff, like, and she wants, probably low taxes and gas to be cheap. You know, I get that. I get that, but conservatism doesn't the basis of our politics and ethics don't aren't simply rooted in low gas prices. That's not all of it. So there's lots of people who could have gave a similar message or a different message or a better message in a more articulate manner. Perhaps you I mentioned my sister. She works for the RNC. She was hired like basically by the Trump campaign, kind of, but she works kind of right under them. But she's ahead of like urban engagement and stuff, and she has an interesting conversion story to how she basically steered the family into being conservative after she just learned some information and evaluated her life and was like, "Oh my gosh, we're actually conservative." And then she spoke to my dad about it. And so and she would have had a better speech. Now she doesn't have the reach of Amber Rose, so I'm not making the case that, I mean, that doesn't mean that someone like that shouldn't have been like there making that kind of case, but I understand that they want her for her influence, but she was already posting stuff on her Instagram and online anyway. And again, her followers are more likely to see her content on her profiles than go watch her speech on C-SPAN anyway. The Republican, if they want to have whoever at their rallies go rah 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 supporting Trump, I get that, but it's also about what you're representing for the party as well. And my issue is that for years, for as long as I can recall, Republicans have had this monopoly on we are the party of family values. They say that all the time. And I don't think someone who gets on stage and says, "I'm an entrepreneur," and what she means that she sells her body sexually for money. I don't think that's the sort of like family values and virtues that we want to uplift, especially when she's launching a sale the same time she's giving her speech. So I don't understand people being annoyed by people saying these things like Matt Walsh. They seem just kind of common sense things. You can disagree with them, but his opinion is totally rational. Totally rational. So anyway, someone in the comments said you didn't like her being there at all. Um Someone mentioned the Teamsters being there. The Teamsters said stuff that people said it was really awkward. Some of the stuff that they were saying and the energy from the crowd, you know. At the end of the day, I mean, unless they're going to stop pushing right to work, but you're not going to get the support of the unions like you really want to get the support of the unions. Trump in his speech, he said the leader of the UAW needs to be fired. So, good luck with that support, but I'm sure he doesn't expect it. I'm sure he does not expect it. So anyway, I just thought it was interesting tidbit of a live that I was on. That's like the second night in a row I got kicked from someone's live. Well, not the second night in a row, but the other night before I got kicked from a live for mentioning kind of how people were bulldozed with the Republican platform committee and they didn't want anyone to amend it to include any like pro-life stuff, and they were saying that's not true. I'm like, there's literally stories about it and I could source them like for you. And they ended up kicking me. So anyway, just folks, do some research yourself. Like, people are not just cool and okay just because they say that they're going to vote for your guy. With by all means, it's good that they're going to vote for your guy, but that doesn't mean you platform him. That's just my opinion. It's just my opinion. And the right and the left both have an issue with this. I guess human beings just have a problem with this, with celebrity worship. And if, oh, there's a celebrity, we don't like a celebrity, then it's celebrities are stupid, they need to shut up. If it's a celebrity that's saying something that we agree with, it's, oh my gosh, let's uplift this celebrity. And sometimes we push someone to the forefront so fast, who's so excited about some of the things that they're saying, and there's all this sort of degeneracy that might be attached to it as well, or it could just go bad very quickly. We could mention Kanye. A lot of people uplifting Kanye very quickly, and Kanye wasn't well. It continues to not be well, creative genius and so on, but he's said some very controversial things, and he's always been controversial. Um but people were really uplifting Kanye, and you could point to somebody saying something that makes sense and like, oh, I agree with that. But there's a difference between highlighting a thing or two and being like, I agree with that, and then lifting them up on a pedestal. Like Andrew Tate, there's things that he said that were interesting that you can agree with. I thought he gave a lot of information about how people were treating COVID in other countries, how rich people were still going around partying and acting like it didn't exist or whatever. But then, and people would really start uplifting him, and like, guys, he's a pimp. He's a pimp. And not just a pimp, but who promotes degeneracy, who's has said that basically, you guys know, he could like converted to Islam, and the reason why he basically did that is because he respects that they'll in not so many words, are willing to defend their faith through violence. So David Wood has some good videos on Andrew Tate and some of those comments. Some of them have been scrubbed from the internet, but they still live on and can't get rid of everything. So we just have to be careful about our hero worship. And just because they say a thing or two that you agree with doesn't mean that they need to be platformed and upheld as some kind of a provoking thought leader, especially when they might say things that will end up eroding your morals and your values and where you're standing. And unfortunately, I'm seeing, that compromise is leading to conservatism basically losing its foothold in the Republican Party, evangelicals being ridiculed within its own party and losing its power. And for years, Rush Limbaugh used to talk about how people wanted to get evangelicals out, and people would complain to him in private, like, oh, what are we going to do about these Christians and these evangelicals, and how are we going to get them out of the party? And he's like, are you guys stupid? They are why you are winning. Being able to use to coalesce around our candidates and be active, and they get their congregations to vote and all this kind of different stuff. They're the reason why you've been getting victories, and you want to push them out. So I don't I don't know where we go from here with so many big changes to the platform and the mentality of the Republican Party. I find it really disheartening. But not just like Trump having his particular opinions and being more populist or whatever is one thing, but the direction that folks are willing to follow him to is also disheartening, I guess. And there's people who are so into kind of hero worship that you can't just love your guy, maybe criticize him a bit, but still support him and let that be that. They gotta criticize everybody around that doesn't just like blindly follow. And that's not a good place to be. It's not a good place to be. Anyway, Uh, Someone said evangelicals are not running to the Democrats over the abortion issue. Um, well, I mean, if it as far as abortion goes, there's nowhere to go. Besides like a third party, like there's a third the Solidarity Party, I think, for example, I think is one. I don't even know if they're gonna be on every ballot in every state anyway. But yeah, there's nowhere for a Christian to go for that issue, and nowhere to go for support of like a traditional marriage, I guess, anymore either. But Allie Stuckey made a point when they decided to change the platform, and she said without like the social issues, people can be persuaded into voting Democrat. And I don't, excuse me, I think a lot of people took her seriously, or they didn't understand that because you'll have people like Charlie Kirk, and not just Charlie Kirk, but lots of people. But I know he said it specifically that you can't be a Democrat, or be a Christian to be a Democrat because of the things that they support. But I mean, we're edging closer, are we not, in that direction? Um, as a party. So I didn't like comments like that because there are reasons why people might choose to vote Democrat and they're Christian could be rooted in things that they consider Christian theology, but they're just kind of looking interpreting the politics from a different standpoint. Like to explain give a lot of the social programs, they consider that helping the children and the poor and the needy and all these things that Christians are supposed to be doing as a, I don't know, Republican or just as a normal person, normal Christian. I would say that charity is your responsibility, and you using the government to confiscate money and redistributing it is not charity. That's not charity. You should be doing it yourself. I'm not saying we shouldn't have social programs, but the idea that we pay for everything and do all the things all the time and keep creating programs and for taking care of everybody and everything and forgiving every debt and et cetera, like those aren't necessary things that we should do, but they might see it and interpret it as that's the Christian thing to do. So people are just kind of seeing their perspective of Christianity differently than a Republican might. But now the Republican Party doesn't have social issues in their platform, like marriage is between a man and a woman, or that abortion is wrong. So those were two really big things that the right could claim and clutch on to these Christians with. And now there's going to be people who are talking about, well, who's the party who cares about social justice? Or not social justice and like every sort of social justice thing that they mean, but like really caring about uh people who are like black people and who are shot in the street and how they're treated and so on and so on. Now we could say, hey, let's look at the data, let's look at the statistics, and is your worldview about like police targeting black people, is that even accurate? And those are political conversations to have, but unless you're going to take time and look through the data in the, I don't know, in the middle of the sermon or after church, what people might just be thinking is these people on the right don't even want to address this issue, and our brothers and sisters out here are hurting, and America needs to repent of this racism and all the stuff that they're seeing. And they might not know the actual data and details that might bring some clarification to all of these emotions that people are having. So that was a big rift in 2020 with different churches, how people were treating the shooting with George Floyd. I mean, not the shooting, that the death of George Floyd and other sorts of shootings and stuff. Um, so that's just another kind of thing. Like you know, just giving an example. Um, um, my sister said also you can have local people run and will be Democrat and name only because they know that Republican can't win in their district. That's true too. Um, the right just needs to message better. They do. They do. Um, it's hard when all the media points a particular way, but in general, Republicans are trash in a lot of their messaging. And they just are. Like the life issue. It boggles my mind when anyone has a conversation about it without acknowledging that the child that we're talking about killing a child, you know? That we cannot ever have a conversation about this and let the gravity of that reality go. We have to talk about it. So if you're going to justify it, you have to talk about the fact that we are talking about the premeditated homicide of a living human being. And Republicans will have these conversations and not bring that up, not bring the humanity of the child and in question when they have these conversations on CNN and CBS and MSNBC, wherever they are, they cannot have these conversations. Or at least they should not be having any of these conversations without acknowledging that. And I don't even think they really acknowledged it during when they had their own debates because they were so touchy about the situation. They might say, well, we want to affirm life or something like DeSantis might say something like that. But they you know, they never really brought it into perspective. Like we are having a conversation on killing children and what should we allow in which circumstances. And if there is a circumstance, it's got to be pretty darn justifiable. Like that is the conversation we are having. And nobody really does it right. And they're all running from this issue because nobody does it right. If people could talk about the issue better, we'd be further along. We'd certainly be further along. Even DeSantis, who is decent at it, um, it would seem kind of painful sometimes him talking about the issue. I think particularly when he talked about it when he was debating Gavin Newsom, because I mean he signed a 6 week bill, but 6 week bills don't actually make sense if you believe life starts at conception. So protecting at the heartbeat, you're just kind of misinforming the public about when the value of a human being is, and it's got to be before the heartbeat. So if conception is when our lives begin, which the technically scientifically that is, it's not up really for dispute. Why would you give anyone 4 weeks or 6 weeks, however long, to decide, and the heartbeat be the thing that stops it? They're on a self-determined path. It's not like you have to implant a heart microchip to make it work. So I just he seemed awkward with it because his position um is hard to defend because there's something illogical about it. So trying to think of like another example of like the immigration issue was a big thing. Ali Sucky said some time ago that she knows Christians who solely voted for Democrats over the immigration issue. And so if they're thinking like, of loving the stranger and taking care of the stranger, if they're looking at scriptures like that and they're interpreting it that way, and they hear we're going to mass deport people, and they think about people who've integrated into society and who have families here and other stuff, they're like, are you guys going to deport them? And Trump was asked about it on the debate stage and he kind of dodged it a little bit, that particular phrasing from like Jake Tapper and Dana Bash. So if they're thinking it's just kind of mean to deport all those people, they might not see that as very Christian. Now, leaving the border wide open, you could have the conversation of like, look, if they don't do something about the border, they're trafficking so many children across the border and people are being sexually assaulted, and you could have these political conversations, but they're looking at things from a different lens than you are looking at the issue. And maybe you both have the same theological perspective, but on how you solve these problems. Maybe you're missing different information that gets you to two different conclusions. And one conclusion here is the Republicans are going to handle this best in a Christian way. And the other side is that these Democrats are the ones who are handling the issue in a more compassionate manner. Therefore, I think we need to support them. So, people who make comments like you can't be a Christian and vote Democrat, that doesn't, I think that's unfair. I don't think that makes sense. And every time I hear it, I push back against that, even though I would have said, like, as a Christian, Republicans, they, well, as a conservative, my values more closely align with the Republican Party. And they still do, but I'm deeply upset because I feel like they would rather risk my vote for an Amber Rose, you know? And they test the waters because they feel like, well, Ali Sukke played a video where she said that evangelicals feel like they're the cheap date. Like, we got you a little something before, and they expect you to kind of shut up and go along for the ride and just kind of disregard you and not treat you very well because they don't think you're going to go anywhere. So, the Christians could very well shift somewhere else with the absence of the different social issues. Don't just dismiss the idea that that can happen. Because the number one, like, when my dad, he doesn't pastor our church anymore, but he still goes on like mission. He preaches still quite a bit and goes and does his own mission trips. But my brother is a pastor of our church. But when he would debate other pastors about politics and really push them, like, why are you supporting Obama? Why are you supporting, Hillary Clinton and so on? And what about, and they might say, like, well, I need the health care. And oh my gosh, my dad got into a real big, ugly argument with somebody who he knows over this issue. And he's like, and then he brought up abortion, and he's like, oh, so your health care so you're more important than all these millions of babies who are being killed? Like, how can you say that as a man of God? And he would lie into them about it. And I don't think they talked for a while after that. But that issue that he hammered him into, we've surrendered it. And pastors like him still want their Obamacare or whatever, or maybe universal health care if they start pitching that. So don't think that everyone must still be anchored to the Republican Party after abandoning huge planks of why so many Christians were rooted here. When someone gets up in front of their church and says, we should vote for the party that aligns with our values, which values are you talking about at this point, and which ones that actually point to a certain place? Because again, they both surrendered the life issue. So I'm just letting you guys know. Someone said that they need to stop saying that they're going to mass deport everyone. I think they feel like they have the freedom to say that because that it is actually a popular position right now. There's a poll that we talked about some weeks ago that had the majority of Americans saying that they support mass deportation. But I said that was very interesting. But let's say Trump gets in office and he starts implementing stuff like that. But then you actually have the reality set in. You have people doing interviews with families that are being broken up or chasing people down, and you go back over to the border and cover it in the way that they did back in 2017. And will people quickly lose their heart, or will they be like, nah, this is just necessary because we lived through an open border, so now Trump was right, so this may seem harsh, but we got to live through this and get this done? Or will they just revert because of how the media will portray it and Democrats will portray it, etc.? And then you might know somebody who needs to be deported. But I think they'll prioritize people with who are committing crime as far as deportation, people with, histories of crime besides, illegally crossing the border, people who don't contribute to society, who are, I don't know, maybe not really paying taxes and other stuff like that. I mean, there's other means of how you can look on who gets the priority for getting the boot, but I'm not. I don't think they're going to deport like 12 million people. I don't. I don't think they have it in them to do that. I mean, Trump at one point when he was president did pitch that he was going to do some kind of amnesty. Just FYI. That got talked about a little bit in the primary, but I don't think people really wanted to hear it. So that could very well be floated again. But Trump's decision making will be different though, because he will be a lame duck. So he won't be burdened with, I have to think about my second term. So I don't know how much of a good thing or bad thing that is. He could go for broke for some of these policies. Or he could double down on doing good things. He could sway and try and, I don't know. It just depends on how far into the future he's thinking. Because I did hear they are thinking about like future stuff and the future elections, and that's one of the reasons why they wanted to take abortion off the table. So I don't know. Oh, thank you for the comment. Very insightful thoughts on the abortion issue. Now I'm a little conflicted. I don't know what you mean specifically. I could elaborate. I didn't mean to kind of veer off. We're almost 40 minutes in and I haven't talked about anything from last night. But if you elaborate in the comment, I could, I guess, go further while I wait for that reply. If you would like to reply to that, let me at least show you guys this video. This was supposed to be the funny thing we were going to start with. Cabot Phillips from the Daily Wire. I did meet him when I went to DC last month, and but anyway, he found someone who could do a really good Trump impression, and there's a lot of good Trump impressions out there, so it really blows my mind that SNL was just kind of awful with most of their Trump impressions. There was one guy they finally got that did pretty well, but I'm like, at first they just couldn't get anybody who could do them well at all. And I didn't know if it was because, I don't know, sometimes when you hate someone too much, you can't really do a good parody because your hate just gets in the way. But some of this commentary from this, the dialogue is really funny. So I just wanted to share this.
I'm very excited right now because we are joined by the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Wow, it's great to be here, Cabot. Welcome to Milwaukee, the RNC. It's so beautiful. Frankly, this is the biggest and best convention since Abraham Lincoln had the first Republican convention. You remember that? But everyone says I'm just as good as Abraham Lincoln and even better at dodging a bullet. Frankly, they can't get me. But honestly, they came after Abraham Lincoln. They came after me. They came after Jesus Christ, honestly. But the Pharisees, they're screwing us on trade. I mean, 30 pieces of silver for the Son of God. 30 pieces of silver. That's a terrible deal. It's a terrible deal. But we're going to win. We're going to win bigly. We're going to win bigly in November. And I'm so happy to be here. I'm very excited to speak tonight. I'm going to have a bandage on, and I'm going to look great doing it. I really am. I'm going to look so good.
Mr. President, thank you. This is actually Mr. Bradley Devlin. Bradley, how did you find out that you were capable of doing this?
Cabot, you helped me get one of my first gigs in writing. So being in conservative journalism since I was 19 years old in 2016, my life has been dominated by this man. I don't think anyone doesn't have a Trump impression at this point. I don't know why or how.
But no one has one like that.
I don't know why or how it's as good as it is, but apparently when I did that video from the boat, people really enjoyed it.
Yes.
And so I've been walking around here all week, and people come up, "You're the guy from the boat, right? Do the thing, do the thing." So Yeah, it's a weird. It's very good for our line of work, I guess.
It is. It's remarkable. All right, Bradley, thank you for that. This is not the real president. I hope I didn't get your hopes up, but you can see the real president tonight on stage, the final night of the RNC. Watch the entire speech on dailywire.com.
So, I do have a reply here. So, the reply was, as far as my vote for Trump and as a Christian who's very pro-life. Yeah, that's a tough one. Because I mean, there's other obvious issues that the Democrats are so bad on that I mean, the border is number one. The issue, if it was just Trump who decided to say it's a states' rights issue and so on, that would be one thing. The things that have concerned me, and I've been talking about this for some days now, actually I guess for a while now, but the past 2 weeks it's been very concerning, is that the lockstep method of following Trump's decisions in this. JD Vance, I think some time ago, I mean, on his website, he used to say that, he's very pro-life. That's been removed from his website. That page is gone. It just goes to like Trump stuff, which I can kind of understand, but they don't want any of that kind of language there. And he also, he said it like Faith and Freedom, that, social values are going to be very important. And then the reality is that he was on TV talking about how he supports access to the abortion pill like Trump does. And that's how 2/3 of babies are killed via abortion, which that suffocates and starves the baby to death. That's how they die. And then you take another pill that causes heavy contractions, and then it forces the baby out. And you, I guess, normally wait, to catch it on top of a toilet or something. But so that disturbed me. It disturbed me that Marco Rubio was okay with the platform change, and he said our platform needs to represent the nominee. I think the platform is bigger than the nominee, but the platform should say what your values are and should be forward thinking for your agendas, not be basically the campaign platform. The campaign has a website where they can list the things that they want to accomplish. That's not what the RNC, platform is supposed to be for. So I was disturbed by that. I was disturbed by the accounts of how they pushed pro-life people, kind of bullied and intimidated them when it came to the platform, because people got wind of what they were trying to do. Normally you have C-SPAN and reporters who are covering the platform committee stuff. They did not allow any media. They took people's phones and their smartwatches, and they, numbered the section on the pro-life stuff so they knew who would leak what if someone did. They had people following them around when they were taking notes, and they didn't really give them time to read the platforms. And Marsha Blackburn was presiding over it. And when they asked, like, why can they take the Trump campaign and the RNC staff, how come they can take video of us, but we can't take video? And she just said, well, they're working. So they wanted very hard to push the pro-life stuff out of the platform. The platform is pro-choice now, by the way. People who are trying to spin it like it's not are, I think, grifting and not being honest with you. So I'm disturbed by that. And then to make matters worse, Eric Trump was asked about the platform changes, and they said, does this show that your dad is, just going, being a moderate and going toward the middle? And he said that my dad and my wife Laura, who is the co-chair, he said these are always been their positions, and he said, we need to focus on the roof, the holes in the roof instead of spots on the wall. So that was really disturbing. And it Kristen Hawkins, who's the head of the Students for Life, was really upset about that. And so she was one person who was trying to kind of find the silver lining in the platform, but she was really mad about Eric Trump's comments and wanted him to apologize. But I mean, he probably just really honestly spoke the truth. I mean, you know, so Trump keeps saying it's a states' rights issue, which I hate having to have that conversation with so many people now who are trying to defend that position, because the platform position has been for decades. I don't know what all the exact language has been for decades, but for a long time, it's been we want the 14th Amendment to apply to the unborn as an equal protection. They do mention the 14th Amendment in the new platform, but they don't mention equal protection. They say that all states have, we recognize due process and states are free to make laws surrounding due process. Like, what does that mean? They can follow the law if they want to, you know? So it was meaningless without the equal protection. And the only thing that they mention that they oppose is late term abortion, but late term abortion is 1.3% of abortions. So, what about all the other babies? If there's like a million babies, we got to care about more than just like 10 to 12,000, I think. And then the reality is that if the state wants late term abortion, they're still going to let the state make that decision. And every time a state gets a pro life victory, like a heartbeat bill or Arizona's law was a ban, Trump wants them to change that and legalize abortion to some extent. So him like having his opinion is one thing. The thing again that concerns me is everyone following his lead. Like, I don't like having to talk to other Republicans about why it's a bad view that it's a states' rights issue. I'm like, oh, but there's freedom and we get to explain. Like, I don't believe that when you cross a border that you should lose your inalienable rights. I don't believe that we should allow discrimination against certain kinds of people and say that they can't be protected from violence. We wouldn't say that if Texas wanted to make lynching Black people legal, they vote for it for popular demand, you can go lynch some Negroes. We wouldn't say, well, they have the right to do whatever they want with due process. We wouldn't do that. So why can we say, oh, in Texas you can protect the unborn, but in Michigan you can't, or in Colorado you can't? That doesn't make sense. And so we've now misinformed a lot of Republicans who should be steadfast on wanting to protect the unborn on this issue. And it's really unfortunate. So the best thing I can kind of tell you I don't understand this question. Someone said none of these would you say are plausible? Don't gaslight, doesn't look good. You're gonna have to be more specific. I don't know what you're talking about. Someone said God just saved Trump's life and his response is to turn his back on him. Well, the platform stuff actually happened prior to him getting shot. The platform stuff happened last Saturday. This past Saturday he got shot, and the platform stuff happened the Saturday before. And that Monday, was it that? No, 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 no. I started to hear about the platform stuff that weekend, and that Monday they voted on it. That's when they pushed through the vote on it. So this stuff was in motion before. I didn't expect him to suddenly be like, "We have to change our platform. I made a terrible mistake." I didn't expect that to happen. I think something that Abolitionist Rising, Russell, if you follow that page at all, he's not going to vote for Trump, and he wasn't going to, because they won't support anyone who's not for the abolition of abortion. But he did say something that I think that a lot of people are resonating with, and an experience like what he had is life changing, and it does make you put a lot of different things in perspective. And I think including your relationship with God. And during his speech, he did mention how God preserved his life, and so he might be open to more conversations about this. Tony Perkins, who's the head of Faith and Freedom Coalition and stuff, he, is very upset about what happened with the pro-life with the platform and the pro-life values. And he said, we will continue to have these conversations. I can guarantee that. And I do trust that. So I think what we can continue to do is pray for our leaders, all for those who are in an authority, so we may live a quiet and peaceable life, but pray that their hearts are turned and that they will seek to, establish justice and, live up to their oath. Because the Declaration of Independence talks about how we all have inalienable rights, which first being life, and it talks about the purpose of government is to secure those rights. So as far as I'm concerned, when we don't protect the unborn from violence, the government is violating their very purpose of existence. So we can pray that people like Franklin Graham, who spoke last night, did a very good job. Speak to him. I don't know what kind of conversations Paula White has with him. That's his girl. But we can pray that the prayer that we've been praying, or my dad's been praying from 2015, I guess, is that the right people get around him. And he's made a lot of good decisions with the right people around him. There's been some decisions that have been made that have not been great with some people who've been around him. And he's someone who's a very common sense guy, and if someone can really just break things down to him, I I think it's possible to have a change of heart in some areas. But it's gonna take some people who are bold as well and aren't just gonna like fall over and kiss the ring. So you know, I guess that's the best I can say is pray for the right kind of opportunities for people who will be bold to speak the truth and advocate that he does the right thing and that Republicans do the right thing. And from on a state level, on a federal level, if they can, because I mean, they don't have the votes to do really much anything meaningful right now anyway. That's just the reality. I just don't want people to give up. I don't want the US to be like Canada and be like, oh, no one, that's just kind of what we do. Abortion, it's a woman's right, and just kind of let it go. I don't want that to be the thing. I want to go in the other direction of like, we may be down, but we still got to fight, and we're going to keep fighting. I don't want this to kind of dissolve into something that we just kind of normalize and just, I don't know, wait for the judgment of God. Um 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 don't say would you say hypothetical without specificity. The unborn have the same unalienable rights. um I think you mean, because I use the analogy of like, would you say about the black people being lynched? um that's the only kind of analogy I think I used, but I mean, I don't see how that's not a good analogy. because people wouldn't say that those specific people, they would say that it's wrong to let states choose that some people can die based off of descriptive characteristics, is my point. And so that's what we do with the unborn. They're human beings, they're alive. I'm the same human being that I was at conception. I'm bigger, obviously, way bigger than I used to be. And I'm, self-dependent and so on. Um, Much stronger, not as vulnerable as I used to be. But when I was vulnerable is when I really needed protection. But my unalienable rights should be the same. At no point in my life would I advocate that it would be appropriate to unjustly, kill me, to not just kill me, but commit like premeditated homicide. I would never say at any point would it be appropriate for someone to conspire to do that to me. Not today, not tomorrow, and not when I was an embryo. So people need to understand that we need to treat them the same. So that's why I use that comparison. Someone said Peru passed the rights of the conceived in their constitution. The that was the goal and the platform to have some kind of constitutional amendment. I'm not sure, which that would be really, really hard to do, not like totally impossible, I guess, but at this point today it would be impossible due to how people's perceptions and stuff. However, I don't know why you necessarily would need a whole entire amendment if I don't know if the Supreme Court would do this at this point in time. I don't know if they have the guts for this, but if there was a ruling that just acknowledged that the preborn are persons, then that would do it. If they're persons, then they are entitled to equal protection, and you can't deprive them of life without some kind of due process. That's really the big question. Are they persons or are they not? Someone said, I doubt he'll win with this platform. Oh, no, I think Trump will win with this platform. I mean, upset about it other than people who are deeply into the politics, because there's a lot of Christians who are unaware of it too. So I don't, they really kept it hush hush. They did not want this to be a big issue. That's one reason why they didn't have a lot of cameras. Which if I were Democrats, I would be highlighting this, hoping that they could pluck some evangelical votes away from Christians, but they consistently want to go with the narrative that Republicans want to get rid of abortion entirely and ban it nationwide. And they are nonstop talking about it. Kamala Harris tweets about it. Seems like several times a day. That's what they go on the campaign trail and say. It's their number one thing that they want to talk about, this idea that they're going to ban abortion. And it's not even true at this point in time. So I don't understand that strategy. To me, they would have because who's going to believe that lie other than people who are going to vote for them anyway? So if they just did the opposite and was just honest, and took that off the table as far as the voting block of Christians, then they could appeal to them in other sorts of way. Now, I don't know how well that appeal is going to make, because at the very least, the Republican Party is still the party of, well, at least we won't let the boys go into your girls' locker rooms. They still got that going for them. So I guess there's that. But I think I want to see them reverse course on this, but I don't. Biden is so bad with the border that and there's many reasons why Biden is imploding. But as long as he's basically on the ticket and heading the ticket, I don't see Trump not pulling out a victory. I'm not saying it's not possible, but things look really bad and the likelihood that Trump is going to win is, I think, in the 60s right now. Nate Silver did a profile about 538's prediction because they were saying that Biden was more likely to win, but he said there's a lot of things wrong with their model. And he thinks that, last I heard with his prediction, Trump winning was up in the 60s. It was even like close to Trump even winning the popular vote at the time. So if the Democrats switch their person, who's leading the charge, like if it was, we talked about this yesterday, I thought that the best chance they have is Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. If they pick someone like him, I don't know if Trump can win. I don't know. But I don't see Biden going anywhere. I really don't. Well, if he can help it. If he can help it. If they find a way to usurp him, that's different, which everyone seems like that's what they want to do, but his delegates are pledged to him, and they can't change that. They can't change that. So let me actually talk about the convention a little bit. So Trump, he shared his story about how he was nearly killed. And I'm going to let you guys go ahead and kind of watch that on your own, because it is, even that section is like about 10 minutes long. But he said it was too painful to tell a second time. So he said this is the only time he wants to really talk about it. And I thought that to be really interesting. I kind of find it to be unlikely because just knowing Trump and how he likes to talk, that just kind of seems like the thing that he would want to bring up, about the day that God preserved his life and so on. But him saying what he said about it, it does, I think, lend more credibility to this profoundly impacted him. And he did give credit to God for saving his life several times. And again, keep him in your prayers about his decisions moving forward into the future. Because he has a lot of leeway, obviously, in the Republican Party, and a lot of influence. And we want, I wish people would be influenced by their values first and foremost. But there's a lot of cowards in politics, man. So continue praying. But I don't think you can go through an experience like this and not be profoundly changed. And I think that's pretty evident. Now, some people thought that the first 20, 30 minutes of the speech seemed kind of like a different Trump. And then some people said the rest of it kind of went into a normal kind of speech a bit, like that he gives at his rallies. I'm going to be honest, I didn't watch it live. I was watching Cobra Kai last night. I binge watched what was there for my available in part 1 with my sister last night. And then when I was done, I started looking at all these tweets about how long the speech was. And there were some pretty funny comments, like someone said 4 more years and Trump took that by mistake to mean to keep speaking for 4 years, or his goal tonight was to show that he can go this long giving a speech, and Biden can go this long. And there was lots of jokes about how long the speech was. And I'm like, dang, how long is the speech? So it was about 93 minutes, but Trump can go pretty long. Trump rallies are quite long. He's at least talking for 50 minutes or so, and probably more. So he can go for a while. And if you go to a Trump rally, you go there early to make sure you get a spot. You stand in line for hours. Some people are there literally all day long. And then they start the program, and they have local people get up and speak and maybe sing the national anthem, other stuff like that. And then there's a break. usually, because he's not going to be there for like another hour for some reason. And you're just kind of waiting there between people speaking and then Trump coming for like an hour or so, maybe longer. Sometimes his plane is late. Then he comes in and speaks, and then he might reintroduce different people and have them get up and speak and so on, and then he'll go into like his spiel. They're really long experiences, and once you've heard a couple, you kind of know what he's gonna say. So much of it kind of started to go into like typical Trump stuff, but the first 30 minutes or so are really worth, I think, hearing. Like his experience talking about what happened is at least like 10 minutes long. So it's I think that's worth listening to. You guys can do that on your own time. I thought Franklin Graham's speech, well, he didn't really give much of a speech. I mean, he was asked to make some comments and pray, and he talked about how God preserved his life. He did mention that I don't know why God takes some lives and spares others. And I was glad that he mentioned that, because I've heard so many comments about how God, you had his hand on Trump and spared Trump. But I'm like, someone else did die though. So are you saying that God didn't have his hand on the person who died? And Graham just, kind of put into perspective, we don't know all the reasons or why God gives and takes and so on. So I just, like just adding that perspective of we don't know, rather than just like this proclamation. But God does give life, and he does take life, and obviously Trump is blessed to be alive, and it was very likely that he's going to lose his life that day if he hadn't have turned his head. He prayed for him. He did mention some things that Trump did that were specific things that Trump did for religious liberty or for different Christians, and different promises that he made. I've heard a lot of people get up on stage and make generalized comments, very general comments. Like Amber Rose's speech, people liked it because she said her dad told her to do some research and stuff. But as far as like the impact that Trump is having on America or whatever, families for now versus Joe Biden, they are anecdotal, unspecific things with no kind of like data or metrics or whatever. So I like that he named some specific things, and then he gave a prayer. So Frank, he was up for like 6 minutes. Hulk Hogan was also up yesterday, and he just electrified the crowd. Now, I didn't think his speech was like, the content of it was great, but if you're a big kind of wrestling person, and just the energy was probably just insane there with Hulk Hogan. Let me just play a snippet so you kind of get the energy in the room. Which I think Franklin Graham went after Hulk Hogan.
But what happened last week when they took a shot at my hero and they tried to kill the next president of the United States? Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again.
Yeah, so pretty wild. Something that is so stupid though. You guys know this account, Brandon Harris HQ, with the dark Brandon logo. They tweeted out, Hulk Hogan says far right MAGA Republicans will run wild for 4 years if Trump wins. Why are you tweeting that out as if that's some kind of call to violence? Running wild and stuff, that's just stuff that Hulk Hogan will say. It's just a phrase. But it doesn't mean like, I don't know, January 6th or BLM kind of riots or anything like that. Um, I don't know if they want to turn this into another bloodbath comment situation, but what kind of stupid intern runs this account? I don't. It's reaching so bad. The reach is off the charts here. This is such an unserious tweet. It's such an unserious response. Oh yeah, Hulk Hogan. Oh my gosh, he said they're gonna run wild if Trump wins. I would just be embarrassed. I would be so embarrassed if I was a part of this campaign knowing the sort of nonsense that they tweet all day. And I used to be the creative director of the Michigan Republican Party. So the social media stuff was my job. I didn't always do the posting. I very rarely actually did the actual posting because that was someone else's job. But I collaborated with them. We used to share the same office. He used to say that I made the bullets and he fired them. So I would make the graphics, I would make the videos, the hit pieces, and other stuff that we would put online. This is so stupid. Again, I would just be embarrassed. And this is a presidential campaign. This isn't someone running for, I don't know, class president in middle school. This is an actual account for someone who's heading up the HQ for someone running for president. And I don't understand. What is the goal here? This isn't the first like really stupid tweet from them, but it's crazy because they say stuff like this on TV. Joe Biden Trump said there's going to be a bloodbath if he wins. Oh my gosh, knowing that Trump doesn't mean actual violence. He meant economic outcomes for the automotive industry, but they repeat it. So if they start saying like, what they're saying, that the MAGA will run wild on America if they win. That is so not even possible. It's likely. So anyway, my sister said it was probably some Gen Z person that doesn't know who Hogan is. Maybe that could be the case. He is pretty OG. But even if you don't know who Hulk Hogan is, it's still pretty stupid. It's still pretty stupid. But how young must that intern be? Would you let an intern run an account like that, though? It just seems like not a job you wouldn't want to leave for an intern. Anyway, the Republicans, they feel that their convention was pretty successful. It had moments, a lot of people talked about things that they found controversial. The first day was really bumpy for folks. But there are lots of highlights on the last day and other days as well. I want to read to you guys, moving on though, before I let you guys go. Joe Biden, people have been trying to push him out. Obama's folks, his aides, are leaking information, saying stuff. You have stuff about Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries, all encouraging Biden to drop out, that he doesn't have a path of victory. And this man is pushing back. So this was in a paper. People close to Biden push back on calls for him to step aside. A source close to President Biden is blaming senior Democratic leaders for giving us Donald Trump as calls for Biden to step aside grow. Can we all just remember for a minute that these same people who are trying to push Joe Biden out are the same people who literally gave us all Donald Trump? In 2015, Obama, Pelosi, Schumer pushed Biden aside in favor of Hillary Clinton. They were wrong then and they are wrong now, the source told NBC News. The source pointed to polling in the 2016 election that showed Hillary Clinton leading by as much as 9 points. How did all this work out for everyone in 2016? Perhaps we should learn a few lessons from 2016. One of them is polls are BS. Just ask Secretary Clinton. And two, maybe, just maybe, Joe Biden is more in touch with actual Americans than Obama, Pelosi, and Schumer, the source added. This is unusually blunt language representing the views of people closest to Biden who are increasingly frustrated with the lack of loyalty from party leaders. It shows that the scars of 2015, when Biden did feel pushed aside by Obama in favor of Hillary Clinton, are still showing. Now, I wasn't really aware of Biden being pushed aside. That was like when his son died, and I thought if Biden did win at that point in time, I thought people would well, one, he was the vice president. So I figured that if you could transfer some of Obama's popularity into someone at the time, which cool isn't really transferable, I guess, but that sort of power at that point of time and influence was best going to be appropriate right after his presidency. So if there was a good time for Biden to run, I thought it would have been in 2016. But his son died in 2015, and that was like kind of the reason given that he didn't really want to run at that time. So which I can understand, but I was really concerned at that time about Joe Biden running, because with his son just dying, I thought people would have so much sympathy for him, and him actually coming fresh off being the VP, that he would have been able to maybe win. So I was concerned at that time, and he could talk better certainly then than he can today. So this source saying that Obama pushed Joe in favor of Hillary, that's a spicy detail. That's a spicy detail, because from just kind of the outside perspective, it was just like, didn't he just kind of decide not to run because of the devastation that had just occurred with his family? Did Obama sit him down and say, no, we need to push Hillary instead of you? That's very interesting. Now, you know, I don't know what all kind of deals or conversations might have been had anyway when like Hillary decided to leave the position of Secretary of State. Obama might have said like, hey, you're next. You know, so I don't know what kind of conversations they had, but it's just very interesting. The spice there, they're going down swinging, man. They are going down swinging, saying, oh, don't trust the polls, because they thought that Hillary was going to win, and she obviously didn't win it. She obviously didn't win. I don't think the polls obviously underestimated how much people disliked her. And then there was also the shy Trump phenomenon. There's just different factors they didn't include in the polling. Now, some of the polling, you know, they were all wrong, obviously. And I still watch the montages of people crying that night, the election night. But they weren't as wrong as people kind of pretend that they were. I mean, a lot of places that they thought that she might pick up lost very slimly, you know? But they were saying that like Hillary has a 99% chance of winning the election, and she obviously lost. Joe Biden is living a dream, and his people are living a dream, a fantasy, really, if they believe the polls are just that off, and it's just that he actually has a magical kind of chance of taking this thing. Now, anything's possible. If they really wanted a better shot of him winning, they could have just been competent on the border. It makes some meaningful changes, because there's a lot of people who really don't want to vote for Trump, but they're not giving them much of an option. And they could have done something about the border by now. He could have done some meaningful executive orders by now. His loss is totally on him if that happens. But as far as him stepping aside, it sounds like he really doesn't want to, and no one can make him, I think. Again, his delegates are pledged to him. Eric Erickson said a comment that was pretty funny. He said, as I said after the debate, Biden is the father of 2 drug addicts who abandoned his young sons after their mother was killed so Joe could play senator in Washington. His favorite son died. His surviving son turned the dead son's widow into a crack addict. Joe's wife plays doctor teacher. This is not a functional family capable of sitting down and saying, "Dad, dear, retire." So, and that's not kind of a ha-ha funny, but it's just really messed up. This family is really messed up, always has been messed up. And I agree with that. Them kind of looking at the writing on the wall, looking for the good of the country to say the good of the country. I mean, they obviously think that their dad winning is for the good of the country, but them sitting him down and saying, you know what, Dad, you're not quite there like you used to be, and we need to have you step aside and let the younger generation carry the torch, but you deserve to retire. You did your service, and we don't kind of need to show the world the continued decline. They're not the people to do that sort of thing. And Hunter has a lot riding on this, and Jill frankly likes the power. So maybe he's out by Monday. Maybe he stays into the very end. Again, Biden is holding all the cards, and they're trying to do a virtual roll call with the delegates saying that he's the nominee prior to them even having convention. And they said they wanted to do that because there was a law in Ohio that it had to be a certain point. They had to have their nominee. And so they were trying to do something faster so he wouldn't be like kicked off the Ohio ballot or whatever. But the legislature in Ohio changed the rules. So whoever wins the nomination is going to be on the ballot. So they don't need to do the virtual roll call, but they are trying to make sure that Biden, gets his nomination, and they, I guess do it with as minimal fuss as possible. So we'll see what happens. It's very spicy, and it's very interesting how kind of unified the Republicans are with Trump, especially after what tragically almost happened to him. And the Democrat Party is totally falling apart. They're so divided. It's not just that people are speaking out against Biden. The fact that there's so many leaks really shows how dire the situation is for them. So it's just an interesting contrast. And that's another reason why I don't understand some of the possible divisions that they sowed with this whole like platform committee stuff and so on. But I don't know. I don't know how much people know about it outside of people who are chronically online, like you and I, and maybe you guys know about it because I'm covering it. So I don't know. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com because it does cost to stream and run my website, all the stuff you guys can't support. I appreciate it. As I mentioned this yesterday, but when I come in, I normally have like a counter and has some music on it, like a countdown for like 30 seconds. I'm going to redo it on Monday, and there's going to be some different music. So I just don't want people to be like really confused. And the reason why I'm changing it is because I do have the license to use that music, but there's no way to like preemptively do it before I do a live. So every time I do a live, I have to go in and dispute a copyright claim, and they release it immediately. But it's just annoying. They do the same thing for my intro, but I'm not going to change my intro music because it's awesome. So I will at least change that music. And so I'm probably going to use one of my cousin's rap songs. So I'm just going to have to decide. So I just want you guys to be aware when you see that countdown, and there's like, instead of like the rock kind of music playing, it's probably going to be like some Christian rap or something. So just want to let you guys know. So have a nice weekend. I'll be going to church in about an hour or so. And so I guess about an hour and a half. So you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. You guys be good. You guys be safe. And hopefully, nothing crazy happens this weekend. But whether, something crazy or not happens, we will definitely usually always have something to talk about on Monday. So God bless you, and I'll see you on Monday.